You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven.
We must consider that we shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us.
They will call it a people's republic, but the people could not be in more opposition. They will do it in the name of the poor, but to help the poor, they distribute wealth so that both the proletariat and the bourgeois are equally poor together. The elderly become a liability. The wealthy are viewed as wicked, capitalism is seen as evil, and sin nature and the need for Jesus Christ are completely ignored. These are the appalling, sobering realities of Marxists and their communist states. Hey everybody, it's Miguel Brown here with the City Upon a Hill podcast, and in today's episode, I would just like to take the time to talk about communism right here in the United States. You know, the Democratic Party got the ball rolling back in the 1930s when President Franklin Roosevelt introduced his New Deal. In the late 1960s, another Democratic president named Lyndon Johnson, FDR's protege, began his Great Society, his war on poverty, and his food stamp programs. All of this was very subtle, but smart individuals could smell the rat. And the rat was that the New Deal was basically stomping all over the American free enterprise by redistributing the nation's wealth among the citizens. Additionally, President Johnson, who had supported the New Deal, tried to eliminate poverty by raising taxes that would fund his many welfare programs. Again, very subtle, but all of this was just one step after another in a very bad direction. Now, today, the Democratic Party is indoctrinating America's pupils. They are teaching students to hate America, to reject our nation's founding principles, and to accept the ideologies of modern liberalism, Marxism, Darwinism, and Leninism. Now these students are growing up and are old enough to vote and even old enough to run for office. They additionally let Marxism come into America unchecked at the open border. And this is the Democrat Party that we're speaking of. The Democrat Party introduced us to communism. Some Americans who are beginning to despise the Democratic Party because of the direction their party has been going are beginning to vote for the Democratic Socialists. These Democratic Socialists are starting out on small and even local levels. For example, mayors such as Zoran Mamdani, Katie Wilson, and LA hopeful Nithya Raman. One thing that I have noticed is that the Democratic Party itself seems to be targeting smaller scale levels instead of national levels. And I believe that this is seen in Governor Tim Walz's small town PAC, which, according to its website, exists to strengthen the Democratic Party from the ground up. So perhaps that is how Marxists are planning to infiltrate America's lawmaking bodies. That's just my theory, though. But what's so bad about the Marxist ideologies? Well, Lenin boasted, first, we will take Eastern Europe, then the masses of Asia. Then we will encircle the United States of America, which will be the last bastion of capitalism. We will not have to attack it. It will fall like an overripe fruit into our hands. So, from the very beginning, communists have realized that we, the United States, are the toughest target, and therefore, we must be the last target. Their prediction is that we will be so weak that when they attack, we will completely fall into their hands. And this is exactly what is happening. America is being crippled by teachers who are indoctrinating our students with Marxist, humanistic, and anti-American philosophies that have turned many of them into communist sympathizers. Marxism touts that it makes the poor wealthier, but it really makes the rich and poor equally impoverished. Meanwhile, the few in authority run off with all the money. Marxism's vision is to eventually eliminate all global borders, all civil laws, and all bodies of government, and just let everyone live in scattered villages where everyone does what seems just to them. No laws, no standards, no ramifications. One globe, one country, one currency. They want to strip religion away, especially Christianity, and either turn men into atheists who become their own standard of morality and justice, or make one global religion that everyone in the world will have to follow. And no, it will not be Christianity. They will rob you of your wealth. They will steal your property. They will put you in government-funded apartments. They will abolish law enforcement. They are globalists, so they want to try to eliminate all national borders. You will wait in long lines to receive groceries. They will make you wait for your medicine. If they decide that you are a liability, they will not give you medicine and will just make you suffer. They will send the old to nursing homes. They will abort babies. They will burn churches, destroy private businesses, and erase the written records of their failed past, America's history books. They will set parents against children and children against parents. You will work where they tell you to work. You will receive only the news they want you to receive. You will be silenced, you will be censored, and you will perhaps be imprisoned. And I apologize if all of this scares you, but honestly, it needs to scare you into voting against Marxism. Karl Marx spent his days and his money in the libraries of Britain poring over intellectual books and the writings of philosophers to try to solve all of the world's problems. Meanwhile, back at home, his wife and children lived in immense poverty and loneliness. Some of his children even became the victims of themselves. 2 of them took their own lives. 3 of his other children died in infancy because Karl Marx viewed work as capitalistic. And all the money that did come in, Karl Marx spent on himself. Karl Marx, interestingly enough, was raised in Judaism and later in Christianity after his parents converted. However, even with the full knowledge of God's infinite grace and his wonderful redemption, he chose to rebel against all of this. Instead of trying to solve the world's problems by acknowledging that the world needs a savior, Marx formulated an alternative solution. And if you would like to see how Marx's ideas worked out, just take a few glances at a couple of pages from world history. It's quite awful. Now, this may surprise you, but Karl Marx was actually born into a very wealthy family, and he certainly had no problem with receiving money from others to spend on himself when he refused to work. Now, Karl Marx's anti-wealth rhetoric is very dangerous. Dan Greaney, the comedy writer seeking the Republican nomination for president in 2028, said on his campaign website that when he saw that inauguration photo, Trump surrounded by tech billionaires and CEOs, he, Greaney, was disgusted into action. The Republicans empowered him, Trump. The Democrats failed to stop him. Now he, Greaney, is running on the stance of healthcare for all, housing for all, and prosperity for all. For all, for all, for all, for all, for all, communism at its finest. And it is literally his campaign slogan. The communist is definitely anti-wealth, unless we, of course, are talking about his own personal net worth. He can be filthy rich, but how dare Elon Musk become a trillionaire? You have to sit in the heat with no air conditioning, right? But the Marxist can send his wife to enjoy herself in Spain for an Islamic wellness retreat. Communists act like they are very anti-wealth, but they tend to forget to mention their very wealthy backgrounds. Karl Marx himself was raised by immensely wealthy parents, and Zoran Mamdani certainly did not have an impoverished childhood. Now, I do understand that we have some Christians today who think, well, you know, it sure would be nice if the rich would just give up some of their money and give it to the poor and less fortunate. And it's okay if you want to help the poor. But to vote to rob the rich people is straight up communism. The rich worked hard. And yes, there are corrupt rich people, but there are also corrupt poor people. One's net worth is not necessarily a barometer of his corruption. Now, do not take what I am about to say wrong. I understand that there are some serious situations where people simply cannot do better, and they are genuinely struggling financially. But I believe that many of these poor people that we wish that we could just wrap our arms around and distribute billionaire dollars to could truly be doing better for themselves. And most of the time, those who genuinely are less fortunate do not end up receiving the help that communists claim they will provide. What most communists actually do is they claim that they are trying to help the poor when they tax the rich immensely to distribute wealth. However, in reality, everyone ends up poor, except for the few communists in control who are pocketing most of the money for themselves. It's like a bear. You can feed it yourself, or you can leave him alone and make him get his own food in the wild. If you feed him, he'll become dependent on you to the point where he can't survive without you. If you randomly stop feeding him, he won't just go back into the wild and forage for food. No, he will keep coming back to you until you feed him. The same is true with these quote-unquote needy people who could be doing better for themselves. They are able-bodied. They have just been spoiled by welfare and billionaire dollars, just like bears who usually sit by the creek hunting for fish have been spoiled by a friendly hiker's picnic scraps. Rich men are often very philanthropic. Good businessmen are humble men who will not go around bragging and saying, "Hey man, I just donated $8 million to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital." Some of America's wealthiest men have been very generous givers. We've seen this from J.C. Penney and Andrew Carnegie to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Now, you do not have to agree with every single philanthropic endeavor that these wealthy men have contributed to, but they were giving their money away selflessly nonetheless. And when was the last time we stopped and appreciated the great contributions of men like Donald Trump and Elon Musk? You know, last I checked, President Trump is not accepting a salary, and he is funding several projects for the American people using his own wallet. Elon Musk gives away millions of dollars, works for the American people for free, sends Starlinks to the less fortunate and the suffering, but yet jealously eats some people up when he becomes a trillionaire. In short, wealthy men and women do not need a middleman called the Marxist tax hiker to make sure their philanthropic donations get to where they need to go. If Elon Musk wants to help underdeveloped countries, he can send them the money and resources himself. He does not need to get taxed by somebody who probably will keep some of the money getting funneled into the philanthropic fund for himself. If Michael and Susan Dell want to help children get a financial head start, they can donate to Trump accounts directly and do not need to have their money stolen through billionaire taxation, only to have their money divided between the whippersnapper fund and the politician's wallet. Now, I'm not original with this illustration at all, but the Marxist sees this beautiful mansion. He sneers and says, "No one should be allowed to own something this nice." The capitalist passes by this exact same mansion and declares, "Everyone in America should have the opportunity to own something this nice." These are two completely opposite perspectives that tend to dominate economic theory today. And you're entitled to your opinion, but having an opinion and having an opinion that is practical and actually works are two completely different things. And I absolutely love the way President Ronald Reagan put it. President Reagan said, "Socialism only works in two places: heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where they already have it." President Reagan warned this nation about Marxism long before it began gaining as much traction as it has today. And I would encourage everybody listening to study Ronald Reagan's presidency. You'll not only fall in love with him, but you are going to discover immense wisdom conveyed in his warnings about what he viewed as the evil empire and communism. So study real history. And what I mean by that is read source documents. Don't get all of your information from Wikipedia pages, graphic novels, and Netflix documentaries. When you study actual history, you'll quickly realize that nations that abolish righteous rule fall quickly. And you will also realize that Marxism just does not work. It's never worked. It never will work. And those who think that it's going to work are denying reality. Now, Marxism's packaging has changed a lot over the years, but the contents inside remain the same. New look, same awful taste. Now, to all of you living in areas where a democratic socialist has won a primary race, I want to encourage you all with this. Do not give up in despair. Yes, I agree. It is really scary that a literal Marxist is on your ballot. However, you, the people of the United States, not only have the ability, but the right to vote against them. Even if it looks like the Democratic Socialist is going to win in November, at least give the right candidate a fighting chance by voting for them. We just celebrated 250 years of freedom, and now Marxists are trying to destroy our nation. If people actually rolled over in their graves, and I don't believe that they do, this is all hypothetical, but if people actually rolled over in their graves, I can guarantee you all that every single founding father is rolling over in his grave right now and will only continue to do so if these communists keep getting elected. So you also need to know what your basic rights are and where they come from, because Marxists will try to take your rights away and act like they are the ones who gave you your rights in the first place. Your rights came from God, though. And many of your basic rights are found in the 10 Commandments. The 5th commandment is basically your right to life, and the 8th and 10th commandment are basically your rights to private property. And you can find more examples of this if you look into the scriptures. But the reason why communists are so radically opposed to Christianity and Judaism is because these religions elevate and worship the God our rights come from. And communists are smart enough to realize this, so they naturally want to do nothing with God, the Bible, and the Christian faith. So watch out and beware. Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao Zedong are all dead, but their ideologies certainly are not. Marxism is still alive and very well today. The victims of communistic genocides, the many thrown into boxcars to freeze in the middle of Siberia, and the many protesters at Tiananmen Square are not alive and well today. And that is because men bearing a very radical ideology became rulers in the country one day and decided the next day that their citizens were no longer allowed to have basic God-given rights. It happened in Europe and it happened in Asia. It could happen in America too. And in closing, I want you to realize something about America. And America is a truly great nation. But hypothetically, if America, and again, this is hypothetical, but hypothetically, if America were to become Marxist, again, this is very hypothetical, where would we flee? Now, if you think about it, we probably wouldn't be able to find a place where we would really enjoy to flee. America is the end of the road. This is it. We define the Christian West. If we fall, any close substitutions for America will probably fall too. And let's be honest, there are no substitutions for America and for her freedom. We are literally one of a kind. That in and of itself, that very reason, should encourage us to fight even harder to preserve liberty in these United States for generations to come. And I'll leave you all with that. I hope that you all learned something new. And as always, may God bless you, and may God bless the great United States of America. Before we sign off, I would just like to remind you to mark your calendars, because November 3rd will be a monumental day in these United States, and your ballot could change the course of human history. From Sacramento to Tallahassee, from the land of 10,000 lakes to the Lone Star State, there will be elections throughout this nation for several different offices, including the Senate, the House of Representatives, and even governor. So make sure you do not work overtime that day. Do not schedule a doctor's appointment for after work on that Tuesday. And if your child has a soccer practice, I would encourage you to cancel for that week. Why should you do that? To show that you love and care for America, to exercise the God-given right of freedom of speech, and to practice the blessing of being able to vote for your leaders. So after work on that Tuesday, drive straight from work to the nearest poll and cast your vote for America's values of faith, family, and freedom. And if you have the ability to vote early, seize that chance too. Our nation needs your voice, and you can make it heard when you go to the polls this November.